Welcome to Decoded by Christina. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the Text Shadow CSS property. Let's get started. When adding styles to text on an HTML page, you want to keep it subtle to make sure that the content on your page is easy to read. You can make the text bold, or change the color, or the font size. Another option is to use the text shadow property to add a drop shadow. There are 4 values that are used with this property: the X and Y offset values, which are required, a blur radius, and a color value, which are optional. Here's what the example looks like in the browser. If you want to follow along, the link to this CodePen is in the video description. Most of the time, text shadow effects should be used to add a subtle drop shadow, and not quite like the example I'm using right now. But for demonstration purposes and for testing, using values that create a more prominent style will make it easier to see what each value is doing. Let's delete these values and add them in one at a time. And just note that when using CodePen, it auto-refreshes to show your updates, so you don't have to save or reload the page. But if you want to save a copy, then select the fork option and make sure you have an account. I also like to put my code panels on the left by changing the editor layout under Change View. Alright, let's add in the first value, which is the offset X value. I'll go with 10 pixels. You can use whatever value you'd like as long as it's a length data type, which is a number followed by any unit used to represent a distance value, such as pixels, em, rem, or percentage. This value determines how far away from the element the shadow will appear on the x-axis, which runs from left to right. The second value is the offset Y, which determines the distance of the shadow on, you guessed it, the y-axis, which runs from top to bottom. I'll go with 10 pixels here as well. I always forget which direction the X and Y axis runs in, and I remember seeing an example where the person used Beyoncé's song Irreplaceable as a reminder. In the song, she's singing to her ex, to the left, everything you own in the box to the left. So, X to the left. Anyway, that helps me to remember, and I hope that helps you too if you needed a reminder. Back to the text shadow property. If you only add one value, you won't see any change since both values are required. But if you only want a shadow on the x-axis, then set the y value to 0, or vice versa. Also, when using a property with multiple values, each has to be separated by a space. Right now, it just looks like the text is repeated and doesn't look like a shadow at all. That's because we haven't added the blur radius value, which is used to soften the edges of the shadow. You can also use any length data type here as well. I'll start with a value of 3 pixels. Now we can see it soften up. The higher the value, the bigger the blur. Let's change it to a larger value and see what happens. I'll go with 15 pixels. Now the blur is wider, lighter, and less defined. Now let's try adding the 4th value to change the color. Any color value here works, such as a keyword or a hex code. I'm going to go with the keyword blue. Now that we know how the values work, let's try making them a little more subtle. The first thing I like to do is use a very dark gray rather than black to create a softer shadow. I'll use a hex value of 888. Hex values are usually declared with 6 characters, but because the RGB values of this color is all the same, this is the shorthand syntax. So 3/8 is the same as 6/8. For the other 3 values, I find that 1 to 3 pixels is usually enough to give it just a bit of shadow effect without overwhelming the text. There's always exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, that should be enough. I'll set my offset X and Y to 1 pixel and 3 pixels for the blur. And there you have it. I would recommend taking some time to experiment with the different values to get the effect you're looking for. But in a nutshell, this is how you add a drop shadow to your text. Don't forget to check the description for the link to this example and other resources. And subscribe to get notifications for new videos. And if you're interested in taking a course, check out my CSS Essential Training on LinkedIn Learning. Until next time, bye!